All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Roadmap to AI webinar. My name is Bob Muller, Director of Software Solutions here at Image One. I'm excited to have Brian Bauman, Process Analyst, and I'm going to dive into our theme for this year at Image One, which is transforming tomorrow today. Thought it'd be a great way to share some of our experience we've had over the last 20 odd years in the area of automation and AI, and and really try to help kind of build that foundation and talk through the roadmap that we feel companies should look to as they start to bring in these new technologies into the business. I know a lot of you have probably had experiences. We hear this all the time of software projects that failed, or we had challenges even getting started. So what I wanted to start out doing is just maybe asking, the simple question. That simple question being like, why? Why do AI projects fail? Why do they never start? The answer is quite honestly, you're not ready. Most companies are not ready to take on a new technology, especially AI.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Most companies are not ready, and this is not a discussion today to talk you out of AI, but really to equip you with some foundational knowledge of what we've seen in the past of what makes successful implementations go good. So the biggest hurdles that we see, most commonly are team resistance, either people thinking that their jobs might be replaced, which of course, yes, I'd be resistant to that too, as well as the age-old objection of it's just the way we've always done things, so we're just going to do nothing instead. So those are two big things that can be addressed right away. No standardization of processes today, dealing with loads and loads of unstructured documents. AI thrives off of structure. So if we don't have any structure or any standardization of processes on the front end, that's where we see, this kind of technology a lot of times failing. It's very easy to obtain these days. You can go do a Google search, find some AI. And what we find most commonly, people are chasing a buzzword. It's the flavor of the month or flavor of the year right now in regards to AI. AI is absolutely everywhere. So being that it's so easy to obtain, people go and get stuff and then find, oh no, this doesn't work for me without actually, vetting it out and understanding what it is they're looking for and what measurable outcomes they're looking for as well. And then, trying to do it all yourself as well. Most organizations that we deal with are not experts in AI. So trying to take on something new like that when that's not your expertise, we'll very commonly see as a big hurdle. So, Bob, any three that, a couple of them that stick out to you the most in regards to what you've seen in the past?
Yeah, I think the first one on the list there is maybe one that gets forgotten when you're going through any sort of new technology change, right? You're bringing in software, you're bringing in technology, something that's new, and you forget about the impact it has on the culture and this whole idea, like you said, like enhance versus replace. So I think it's really important to understand and be ahead of how it's going to impact the company when you bring in these new technologies. The second one on there, the standardization of processes, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to enhance something that you don't have a starting point with. Like if you don't have a good standard process and you understand where those pain points are, you're not going to be able to enhance that and incorporate these new technologies. So having that standardized process is critical. And the last one I would say, where are you going? Why are you bringing this in? Like, what are these measurable outcomes that the business needs to see to make it worth going through a project that incorporates these new technologies? So I think those three out of the list are the ones that I see being the most critical.
Absolutely. So again, this is not a goal to scare anybody away from AI, but you're really building those foundational road stepping stones of where to start with these kind of projects. And biggest thing that we see is, again, get ahead of the internal fears that this may cause. It is absolutely okay to have a direction that the company's wanting to go, but letting the team members can go know can go a long way in regards to the adoption of these kind of tool sets and putting their mind at ease that they're not being replaced, which is again a very, very common fear. So opening up that dialogue sooner with the employees about the goals that you're looking to achieve and why and what kind of positive outcomes are going to be gained. Another big one is creating champions. There's the decision makers in these kind of projects, but a lot of times those decision makers are not the ones doing the actual work. So if we can create a champion internally that's actually part of these processes, it pays huge dividends as time goes on, having that internal person that's kind of in the trenches every single day dealing with the ins and outs of the business. And then the teams very, very naturally just follow along with that when they see that person clinging on to it. And that person then communicates all the positive outcomes as well. And great story that we had internally was dealing with the client. We continued to get just questions, more and more questions. And these questions kind of to us translated as fear. So what we asked for was to bring in the key contributors that are part of those processes to get them ingrained in what we're actually discussing. And as soon as that happened, things almost instantly switched. People were asking, forward-looking questions, not resistant questions, and just kind of gained a lot more traction faster that way. And at the end of the day, it's their job. So making sure that they're empowered to continue doing their job and create more value that way is vitally important. Second piece, what are the outcomes that you are looking for? So, of course, it makes a lot of sense, but a lot of people don't think of this on the front end of what are the key pain points we're actually trying to address right now? What is that pain today? And how are we going to measure the success around that pain? So if we can get rid of that pain, what does that success look like? What kind of things happened? Is it gaining more compliance, gaining more accuracy, getting more time? And time is increasingly more valuable these days. Better customer experiences, and on and on. So, understanding this as a team, again, we'll get having a target in the distance that can actually be reached can put the right steps along the way in place and get just the right buy-in internally by everyone. And the impact versus effort again is the juice worth the squeeze is kind of the thing that we talk about there, and what can be done from an actual impact standpoint, but what effort actually is needed to take place. Is it a high effort? Is it a low effort? Was it a high impact? Is it a low impact? And making sure that those align at the end of the day is very, very important. And last one here, laying the foundation. So getting a foundation of what needs to be done, how to start, and we start, really simple, getting things centralized. And centralized is such a hard thing these days because everybody has all their different places that they store things, their email, their ERP, shared drives, network folders, all those different areas. So you have all this documents and data, again, living in this world of chaos and digital clutter, which a lot of times is even worse than the paper clutter that's out there today. And again, AI thrives off of organized data. So if we can get that into good, clean data, that's already been validated, it can pay huge dividends with what can be done down the road from a technology perspective. But setting that foundation is truthfully, I think, the biggest key to being able to adopt new technology like this, because if you're continuing to live in the same state that you've always been in, it is going to be just a lot of chaos. So starting with the centralization and turning those documents into good, clean, usable data there. Anything else you want to add on those, Bob?
No, I think for today, with that roadmap, that starting point is something that can be simple. It doesn't require, um, you know, um, really anything that's more complicated than just getting a feel for where are those critical data points that I need today. And as Brian mentioned, we see those typically strewn about in multiple systems. So what we want to show, 'cause I think showing sometimes kind of helps with the conversation is just show an example of where we have data documents kind of together and they're in this centralized area where we can now allow the agents and allow the technology to do the work that we used to do. So instead of going out and having to find information, browsing through folders, going out to a SharePoint structure, dealing with metadata tags, which have been around for decades. Instead of having to worry about that, let's just get this into this repository where we can have this enriched data that we can then use to go ahead and let the system find the information for me. So I'm going to switch over and share my screen here so we can take a look at what I am talking about. So here's an example I'm sure a lot of people get all the time. They get an email and they get a question in the email. Brian, in this case, he needs something for an event. He needs Diet Coke. So he's looking for this. I don't want to do that. Looking for this Diet Coke that's sitting right here. So what do you do in this case? And a lot of times, because your data's in multiple systems, you have to go out, open another tool set. I have to go find out, well, geez, I don't know who we bought this from, or do I have access to go find this information? And all the normal questions that you have, and then you spend the time to go get it. If we can keep things in that centralized system, once again, all I need to do then is just run your basic search. So I can create these quick snapshot searches and have it go find this information for me. So you can see what happened is it just pulled up, looks like an invoice here. I can zoom out so we can see it better. But it pulls up a vendor invoice. We bought this from last, and it took me right to the section that says, "Oh, this is where we bought Diet Coke," and it was $7.49. This is not information that I would have thought to store when I got this vendor invoice in. We very easily could have just given you an answer and said, "Hey, how much was Diet Coke?" It was $7.49. But what we find is a lot of times there's other information that's around that data that might be pertinent that I didn't think about asking when I was searching for it. But now that I can see the document or the data set that this information exists, maybe I can make another decision right here without having to go out and do a whole nother task.
And big piece with that too is maybe you have them in a good folder structure today, but you get a lot of invoices from these. Well, great. Even if you have a great folder structure today, you still have to go one by one to find the right piece. And that's smack dab right in the middle of that document. So get that back instantly so you move on with the day and you have that data that can be used.
Another way we find we're having this centralized repository is important is when you're trying to find, everything that relates to maybe an item number or everything that's for an employee. And once again, maybe there are documents that are sitting out in the shipping office. You have data in your ERP. You might have stuff sitting in the sales or the purchasing area. And so instead of having to go find or have multiple ways to get this information, I can just use, and this is an item number in this case, I can just go ahead and say, just give me everything that has to do with this item number. And I can have that bring back, once again, not just the data part of it, but also in this case, there's documents. And so you can see here, we have a couple of packing slips. Looks like there might be, a couple of different orders. We got partial shipments that were in, and I can see that right here on the document. Once again, we could just respond and give back the data. But a lot of times that visual, that image, that document is also very critical. The last one that I'll show that gets into a lot of what we're seeing today is this ability to start, asking questions using natural language. So I have an AI, I have a prompt here. And so instead of me, typing information in, or instead of me maybe highlighting information on an email like I did before, I can ask it a question. So in this case, I have a question here. What is the heat number on WO 37430? And I purposefully misspelled things. I don't know about you, but I tend to fat finger things when I'm typing in these prompts. But that should be okay, right? We should be able to get the concept of what we're looking for and get the right information back, because we have our information that has been enhanced, it's been enriched, it's sitting in the central repository, and we let the tool go out, help figure out what I'm really looking for, and give me the information back. So if I go ahead and hit this one, and I have it queued up here as it came in on our task review. So here's a review of that prompt. And so you can see down here in the left-hand corner, Nick, what is the het number for our work order. So I can get the answer, I can get the data back that I'm really looking for. And then once again, you're probably seeing a theme here on the right-hand side. Well, let's bring back where I found this. Because maybe it's important to me to know that this came off of a material test report versus some other place. Let's highlight where we found it. And if you're really paying attention, then you'll see that we actually have some handwritten information on these documents. And so on our question that we asked, let's go find out what the heat number is on this work order, we can actually get information and use that handwriting as data now within our entire scope of our repository. I think the big thing here is just these are just a couple quick examples to show some of the ways that if we can start by simply just getting our content, whether that's data, whether that's documents, whether it's digital today or in paper, we get it into an area, a system where we have that control, where we have that enrichment, then our tools, whether they be that search through email, whether it be some other AI tool that you're bringing into the business, regardless of what it is, that AI will thrive now that we have consistency and structured information versus having it strewn about in multiple systems.
Absolutely, yeah. Turning that unstructured things, especially those things with handwriting and the things that you will never know where that structure is coming from, is some really, really cool stuff to be able to leverage. I'll take back over on my screen here. So again, just talking about use cases, talking about tool sets and things that can be leveraged again and again across all different verticals, all different departments. This is not, we're not talking about cookie cutter things, but things that can be used across anywhere. So as you'll see, a lot of the use cases on here are very document heavy, dealing with large packets, dealing with a lot of unstructured things. You have no idea where the data points are, and being able to then, as Bob showed, query where some of those data points are. Getting them into good usable structure is key. One thing I'll point out, in the manufacturing, we have accounts payable, and this is something that, across almost every organization is relevant, but where we commonly see just, again, a ton of manual effort, and a ton of just dealing with chaos, dealing with the digital clutter, dealing with documents coming in all different ways. And now you need to get that into good, clean, formatted data. So just some ideas there, but at the end of the day, what steps do you need to take to really have this take off? First thing is start slow. Please start slow. This is not a sprint, it's a marathon, and taking the right steps on the front end, laying that foundation, laying that groundwork, getting centralized, getting standardized will pay huge, huge dividends as time goes on. Second piece, defining an outcome. What is the target that's actually trying to be reached? Having that is so vitally important to the success of anything, because even if you are successful, you don't even know if you are successful, because you don't know what that target or that goal originally was. So you don't, there's a lot of just gray area there and interpretation that can be had. So having that goal allows that roadmap then in between, and it can take all different shapes and forms, but allows that roadmap to be followed. And AI is meant to empower. It's not meant to replace employees. It's meant to get that more valuable time and have humans do human-based things, make smart, informed decisions, solve problems. It should never feel like it's going to kick them out of a job. It should be absolutely meant to empower them to do that job better, have more time to take more value to the actual organization as a whole. So if you have questions, if you want any guidance along this way, we are absolutely happy to help. Our information's right here, of course, but the one thing that we found, and the approach with this kind of stuff has not necessarily changed over the last 20 years. It's the technology behind it that has. So having the right approach with any of this is again a big key in regards to how we can make successful projects roll faster, be more profitable for teams, and just be more impactful to organizations as a whole.
Fantastic. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate everybody for jumping on. This will be recorded and be out there on our YouTube page if you do want to go and take a look or send anybody else. Once again, thank you all for the time. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.